Hello, everyone. Welcome to Making Blockchain Fun Again, a conversation about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, new interesting things folks are doing with this technology. My name is Brady Dale. I'm a reporter at CoinDesk. I'm joined here today with some of the leading thinkers in this space. So to my left, we've got Mickey Maher with Dapper Labs, the company that brought you CryptoKitties initially, and whose CTO created the standard that makes it possible for us to do the things we're talking about today. Then David Pacman with Venrock, a longstanding venture capital firm, has a lot of good investments over the past, but including in our crypto space, they've invested in Dapper Labs as well as YouNow. And David has been doing a lot of leading thinking on how games could be one of the ways in which adoption of crypto could move forward. And finally, we have Jody Rich with People Browser, a company that's helping folks to use the blockchain to spur collaboration, and also who worked with us here at Consensus to put together the NFT swag bag, which hopefully folks are picking up. Jody tells me we're on track to hit 1,000 swag bags picked up today. So if you've never had any NFTs before, You've got them now if you claim them, so you should definitely do that with your Consensus ticket. So thanks a ton, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So let's just start it off. Let's go down the panel. Just quick thoughts on why adoption hasn't been as big for NFTs as we might have hoped. What's holding them back? We can start with Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, I think from our perspective, NFTs are, there's the collectible aspect of it, but the approach we're taking is NFTs are, part of games, and there's game mechanics around NFTs, I think, is the most compelling use case. And if we look at it from that perspective, there's a couple things that have prevented it from taking off as much as we would have liked or we would have thought. One is, I think, just the technology supporting this space right now for mass adoption in games is pretty archaic and full of friction. So it's pretty frustrating for a person that's in the space that's pretty technical to play these games, via the wallet solutions or the lack of scalability or the cost. So the technology necessarily isn't there. And I think it's also the value proposition to the user and why they should come and play these games. There is a true user value proposition, but it is much less obvious to the end user, and it's harder to communicate. So education of the user in better, less frictionful technology are probably the two reasons I would mention.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's helpful first maybe just to frame a little bit about what we're all talking about. I think the thesis many of us have is that gaming and entertainment broadly can be a mass market activity on top of blockchain. But in order for it to be so, a bunch of things have to happen. But I think the most important one, which very few people are answering, is so what is it about building games and entertainment on top of blockchains that makes it fun or better or mass market? Just because a new technology exists and you can build games on it doesn't mean like it's going to take off. And I think a helpful framing of this is I saw about 3 weeks ago a survey of like 50 or 60,000 Netflix users. Why do you like Netflix? And number one was there are no commercials. Number two is I can watch whatever I want to watch when I want to watch it. And number three, I can binge watch. Like if I find a show I like, I can consume it all at that time and not wait for an appointment to happen. Number four was I like the shows. So what's so interesting about that is that what Netflix has done is undone the three biggest frustrations of television. And what people are responding to is you've made TV more convenient. And that's what exploded with 178 million subscribers and growing 25-30% a year. So what is it about building games and entertainment on top of blockchain that undoes some of the frustrations, or if to the extent there are inconveniences of gaming in centralized mass market? So I think what a lot of us think about is, well, number one, you can actually have digital collectibles, right? You can have items that are scarce with verifiable ownership that you can buy, sell, trade on marketplaces. You can't do that today without some centralized authority, which then limits its ability to be truly, something that you actually own. And that's like somewhat, in my mind, a little bit separate from gaming. Like you can have digital collectibles that aren't attached to games. And there's a woman out in the lobby who's selling like digital art on the blockchain today, and there's no game attached to it. It's a scarce ownership model. And that's pretty awesome, and I think that can, look, we know collecting is enormous. Collecting is huge. It's something like 40% of us do in our lives. So collecting is big. And then if you attach entertainment to it, where you can play games, and the items that you earn in games can be brought to marketplaces and bought or sold, or your characters or the achievements you obtain in games can be utilized in other games. That to me starts to get at some of the limitations of centralized gaming entertainment that we think, I think all three of us, and hopefully some of you, could unlock big potential and create some new types of entertainment.
I think the blockchain gaming is different, and people out there don't get that yet, and we're sort of partly responsible because we're talking about gaming. The value proposition is completely different. We can create relationships between the tools and the NFTs in a game now, because the NFTs can be moved across to many different platforms. It's not proprietary anymore. And we can also share the thoughts that we have, the social actions that we have around these NFTs. And you know, kitties are a great example. We've given all of you in the NFT swag bag a kitty, and you can interact with that kitty in all sorts of different ways, including you can give it to someone else. Including those kitties could be used on another platform. Now that is a different type of gaming. You know, we have been brought up on games where you get the box out of the cupboard and you just play that game, and it's very focused, and it doesn't, and the things that you learn or the assets in that game are transferable. This is completely different, and I think consumers don't get that. All they get right now is, I want something to happen immediately. And we're letting them down on that part because we haven't completely integrated the technology. But what I love about this is that these NFTs in the games can represent who I am. I mean, how amazing is it that I can build an NFT on the blockchain and then use that in my favorite game? When we get to that point, we will be moving steeply up the J-curve. And so we are at the bottom of that J-curve at the moment, but it's just super interesting for me that once those NFTs become transferable and designed by individuals that can be used in any game, then we'll be able to move up the J-curve.
So just a quick programming note. I texted a friend of mine in the crypto space last night and told her that I was doing an NFT panel, and she was like, I'm Googling NFT. So just in case someone here doesn't know, it stands for non-fungible token, and it just means a provably unique digital item, that's just made possible by the blockchain. Another quick programming note, for our AV guys, our clock isn't working. So if that could be fired up, that would be great. So to follow up on the last thing that Jody said, this idea that that items can be shared between games in interesting ways. Maybe you guys could give us some examples of ways that is being experimented with now. I know Dapper Labs just did an experiment along those lines with Gods Unchained. Maybe we can get some lessons learned from that, and if the others have some good examples, that would be great too.
Yeah, there's two different ways to look at this. One is that Gods Unchained type of partnership that we did. There's others like that coming. And then there's another way, it's the holistic approach of building things together with the intent of having them be built together. So here's what I mean. So if you talk to traditional gaming companies about the interoperability or the composability of moving items between games, they kind of scoff at it in a way that, hey, like, my user's playing Counter-Strike. Why are they going to want to take their gun to Call of Duty? And there's some validity to that. That's probably not the use case that we're looking at, and there's probably some right for them to scoff at it. But I don't think they're looking at it as deep and from the perspective of what we're looking at it from. So the Gods Unchained type of campaign is similar to what they're talking about, the gun between Counter-Strike and Call of Duty. Now, when you have two indies like CryptoKitties and Gods Unchained willing to work together, willing to do the artwork and the technical work to make this come to life, it was very interesting. It drove excitement and users between the games. user could get something in God's Unchained, bring it to CryptoKitties, and vice versa. It was very interesting. It was the first, I think, case of its kind, and it turned out well from both a user perspective and a data perspective. But I think the bigger opportunity in this space is what we see with something we call the Kittyverse. And essentially, what the Kittyverse is we built the game CryptoKitties leveraging open smart contracts. And what happened without our intention, and almost by accident, was users started to want to help the CryptoKitties community do more interesting things in CryptoKitties, and B, wanted more to do besides just breed CryptoKitties. So the Kittyverse started to come to fruition and started to develop. And what the Kittyverse is it's about 50 different apps that are built on top of CryptoKitties. Places, very, simple apps where users can bring their CryptoKitties and do things like race them, dress them up, etc.
And most of these are built not by Dapper Labs, right?
None of them are built by Dapper
right,
Labs.
Yeah.
So
key point.
Yeah, it is a key point. So essentially what it is CryptoKitties became a platform. It became a platform of NFTs where you can take these NFTs into these 50 other apps and do stuff with them. So this is just a very minor example, but if you look at it from an example of where we think games are going in this space, if you have some type of World of Warcraft or Roblox type game experience, and then it becomes a platform, and you're unlocking the creativity and development talent of the world or your community, you can see where this metaverse starts to happen, where you have the core game, but then there's other apps or games built on top of it where things can move between the apps and between the core game and the app. So building a game and then building apps with that game in mind for the interoperability aspect is probably where this use case is best seen.
So if you think about the two most valuable things you can create in media, one is a world. So Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Star Wars, World of Warcraft. Another is a platform, Facebook, Twitter, on which people publish content for free. Both of those types of businesses or media creations for the last hundreds of years have been created essentially by a single actor, right? Either someone comes up with an incredible storyline, publisher puts it together, but centralized, right? And when you start having success with a world like, hey, we put out this movie, it's called Star Wars, it did really well, now we should make plush toys. You build up this huge ecosystem of ancillary ways to monetize it, right? Making games and TV shows and books and comics and plush toys. What's different now and what's possible here with blockchain is essentially blockchain is the platform and a whole bunch of different actors can build a world on top of it. Now that's unique. It's been super hard to do that before, and they can sort of do it simultaneously. So the grand experiment we're all running here is, can we get enough people, semi-organized, right, but totally independent actors, to come together and create worlds that suck in lots and lots of people, that are immersive effectively, right? Like, because there's so many different ways to use your assets or play games or do different things, that eventually becomes really big. Personally, I think that's going to happen. I hope it's enabled by Dapper Labs, a company I invested in, but there are plenty of other people trying to figure this out. That to me is like the global promise and why we're talking about like something that could be really big.
And back to Brady's point about the basics, do you guys actually understand what it is about the blockchain that enables these sorts of games? Should we talk about that for a minute? So any one of us can create an NFT because we can register it on the blockchain, and then any one of us can access it, and it becomes trusted and open. And that's the difference, because we've always had these sort of closed environments. I was telling the guys before, earlier this morning, that I woke up this morning craving for crispy bacon. And I almost had one of my team make a crispy bacon token. And I was going to tell you all about it, and because I'm in control of your swag bags, I was going to just deliver a crispy bacon token. And I didn't do it because I didn't want to offend my kosher friends. But that's what's so cool, is that any one of you can create an NFT that we drop into the Kittyverse or the swag bag. In fact, I'm at the help desk later today. If any of you want to do your favorite crispy bacon token, come and talk to me and we'll deliver it into everyone's swag bags. That's what makes this different. And consumers haven't realized that yet. And when they do, I think we'll move up the J-curve.
Well, and on the point of the swag bag too, I think we're doing some experiments with the swag bag, correct me if I'm wrong, where we're sort of gamifying this conference a little bit, right? Because there's opportunities with using NFTs in a way that we wouldn't have been easy to do digitally before, where you can like meet people and things like that. That's right, Jody?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. So the second point about NFTs is that they can interact because you can attach a smart contract. And they can be lock and key, they can be puzzle. When you bring two kitties together, they breed. When you add the crispy bacon token to, what do you have with crispy bacon?
Eggs.
Eggs. you end up with a breakfast voucher, maybe. You know, how fun is that?
Yeah.
And that's what totally turns me on about this, is that, and for me, the next generation of social networks are going to be those social networks that we start in our own environments that allow NFTs to actually build the relationships. And the NFTs actually become part of who we are. And I think in 10 years' time, my persona, my online persona, will not be my profile on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It will be the collection of NFTs that make up Jody.
That's a really good thread to pull on a bit, Jody, because we see lots of evidence that for truly digital native teens, they are growing up in a world where expression is heavily online, right? Not just through the pictures that you publish, but the achievements that you get, the number of people watching you on your Twitch live stream when you game, the tipping mechanism that's built into some of these platforms, the accumulation of digital items that it's very hard to sell today, but and it's also pretty hard to show off, but you try your best to show them off. NFTs would allow them to become liquid, right? Yeah. And to be displayable on many other places, not just within the one game where you achieve them. I think that's can be a catalyst for teen expression, which is what drives most of the internet's growth. They're the early adopters, so it's a cool idea.
Well, and the other part of that is they're tradable, right? So if I'm not into the crispy bacon token, but my mate is, I can actually put it up on OpenSea, which is the biggest marketplace for digital assets. Or I could even offer it to my friends at Neon District, who have one of the leading games in this space. And we can play with crispy bacon tokens inside a game. I mean, that's really wild, and that is totally bringing you, the audience, you, the community, into this environment. And it's not siloing it in a proprietary system.
Well, and to connect those 2 points, another interesting mechanic of NFTs, right, is you can also make them not tradable, right? So we could do an NFT here today, like proving that all of you were actually here at our panel, so you could remember it through all of history in a way that it wasn't able to leave your wallets, right? So like to David's point, that would allow like a young person to show they really were at the concert before the band was super cool and things like that.
Yeah, just to make one real concrete example of that, if you're a Minecraft player, which most kids in the world have been at one point, and you attend Minecon, which was a physical convention held in a bunch of cities around the world, your character in the game gets a cape.
Okay.
The cape is different every year. The cape stays on your character forever. Very few people have them because only 10,000 people go to these. But now you play the game and your character's been altered. There you're showing your achievement off. It doesn't get traded. Yeah. But it is locked to your character. It'd be great if you could do that across games.
Yeah. So this raises an interesting point. So for folks who don't know, you probably all heard of the game Fortnite. It's like probably the biggest game in the world right now. The interesting thing about Fortnite is you don't pay to play it. You just buy stuff in the game that lets your character look cooler and things like that. And so obviously what a lot of people in blockchain talk about is wouldn't it make sense to make those items NFTs, have provable scarcity, et cetera. But folks who understand the economy of those AAA games know that being able to completely 100% control those economies and change scarcity is a big part of how they make lots of money. So I guess the question I have for you guys, what's your prediction? I feel like it's going to happen eventually, but will it be AAA games adopting, becoming convinced by our arguments, or will one of the companies that arise from this space become super popular and be the first to show that like this approach is better? Which is going to be an indie game, or will we convince one of the giants? What do you guys think?
Users in the market will be the only ones to convince the giants. It's been proven time and time again. So the Facebook opened up their platform, it became a games platform. The companies that built games and were successful on that platform initially were indies. Zynga, Playfish, Playdom, etc. All those companies got bought for hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars by the EAs, etc. of the world. Once they saw there was a market there, once they saw that users wanted to go to Facebook and play games, then they jumped in the space. The same exact thing happened with mobile. The winners of that platform were the indies like King, Supercell, Machine Zone, others. Those companies are worth billions and billions of dollars, got purchased by Activision's, EA's, Ubisofts of the world, and that's how those AAA game developers or those gaming incumbents jumped into those platforms. I don't see it being any different here. Your AAA game companies are large corporations. They have to see an ROI in the space they're building for, and making games is a huge investment. And the folks that are making mobile games right now know what their return is, more or less, of making another mobile game. The space is just too early and too new for many of them to take risks in. Now, there are some Ubisofts dipping their toes in this, looking at it, and there are others, but really, I think this space is going to be made and grown by indies, small teams that are figuring out this technology, building specifically for this technology, and investing in it.
Yeah, there's a long history of examples even beyond those.
Yep.
Apple popularized digital downloading, not Tower Records. Spotify popularized streaming music, not Apple. Netflix undid the frustrations of legacy television, not Fox. So, that's the way it almost always goes. There are a couple reasons why. One is because there's nothing wrong with AAA gaming. It's doing great.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? There's no reason for them to say, maybe we should totally fundamentally change our model. Or in Fortnite is not feeling the pressure to say, boy, our game is in massive decline, no one's playing it. Maybe if we opened up the tradability of these game assets, things would change. So things are going fine, but it goes back to my earlier point. If you're able to address the frustrations or limitations of the current model, then it's almost always going to be somebody new doing it, because the limitations of the current model are what's causing it to be so economically successful, right? So it's just the way it plays out. You want the new entrants to have nothing to lose, right? To go for it, because that keeps the people who have a lot to lose away from doing it, and allows for this transfer of value to happen. That's why we invest in the upstarts and bet against the incumbents to invent a market. It's still super high risk, but my bet's on inventive startups and indies will commercialize this space.
I would put it differently to either David or Mickey. I would say that the AAA game companies are the enemy. What we're doing is completely toxic and disruptive. They will not have control over the blockchain. The community will have much more control. If I give you, each of you, the ability to actually create your own weapons, your own characters, and interact on a platform that's open, that is completely toxic to the incumbents, and not just the game incumbents, but the social networks. And that's the space we're in, and that's why I wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning being so excited, because it's going to be community driven. And it's going to be companies like Dapper and companies like Consensus who open up all sorts of interesting opportunities to the community that is going to drive this adoption.
I'll point out that I don't know what they're doing, but I saw the eBay signage in the lobby downstairs that says that eBay is going to be is the place for digital currencies and the place for crypto collectibles. Boy, I totally agree. Like, you should be able to trade CryptoKitties on eBay. We want that to happen. And if NFTs explode like we all think they would, they're a natural place for a marketplace to be based. I love that they're apparently thinking about it. That's a good sign.
And I think the first stage is going to be really simple. It's going to be sort of like baby simple games that we play amongst ourselves. And it may be as simple as the silly example I gave before, which is we can have some fun by bringing bacon and eggs together and having breakfast. because we can control that, and we don't need an Activision or an EA or a Facebook or a Twitter to allow us to do that. I think that's going to be the beginning of it, Brady.
Yeah, Jody. So you know what else was? Excuse me. You know what else was the enemy of traditional game companies? Free-to-play gaming.
Say again.
Free-to-play gaming.
Free to play.
Allowing your users to play for free and then having them buy in-app items. This is a somewhat new phenomenon in the West from Facebook and mobile days. Traditional game developers were used to selling a $50 cartridge or CD in retail stores. Free-to-play gaming came along. None of all the AAA, all the gaming incumbents were scared of it. They're like, why would I let my users play for free? We have this nice revenue stream. It's predictable revenue. And Fortnite would not be doing multiple billions of dollars in revenue selling discs or boxes, right? So this is the enemy to traditional game companies right now, but what it will be is a way to rethink revenue streams and rethink ways to build games once the market demands around this technology, around these new mechanics.
But when you boil it down, these traditional game companies are really just publishers. You know, what is the value that they're adding? And in a sense, you know, blockchain is a publishing platform. How cool is that?
So on that publishing note, one thing I wondered about, I don't think there's an example, and you guys probably will know if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's an example yet of a major recognizable brand doing NFT content. So like, you know, I don't know, a Star Wars collectible cards around the launch of a movie. Have we seen that yet? I mean, that feels like a thing that would get people's attention. Has it happened?
Yeah, Major League Baseball has a game with a company based in LA called Lucid Site. It's not just selling baseball cards, they're selling bobbleheads, but they're connecting online and offline, so moments in the stadium or in the game connected to NFTs within the game. That's the first really one of its kind, leveraging huge IP, but there are others in the space actively working on it, and there are a lot of major IP holders interested in this space.
You know, collectibles, obviously, big market, large IP owners, especially sports leagues, appreciate that it's like a fan, you know, engagement extension product, not just ancillary revenue. Keeps you thinking about the game when the games are not being played. I think all of us up here expect, provided this stuff works, there will be digital equivalents of all sorts of things around sports, and it may not just be, it won't just be you know, player cards that you're trading, but it could be moments, or it could be unique moments, or you could see some sort of 3D fantasy baseball or fantasy football happening here, where you're actually collecting moments and verifiable ownership on the blockchain. I think there's a lot of stuff that can happen here. So, you know, I'd still point out it's pretty early, and those of us who poke around here know that most major IP owners are aware of this and are thinking about it. So, you know, as has been mentioned, CryptoKitties proved that the infrastructure is inadequate to service demand. So kind of one of the worst things you could do right now is launch Star Wars on the blockchain and auction off Luke Skywalker, and like, you know, that would be the end of Ethereum.
Oh, fine. Brady, do we have time to ask the audience for any questions?
We don't. We don't.
don't? Okay.
No, we don't have a thing for it.
Can I ask the audience one question?
Sure.
Can everyone who's opened their swag bag put their hands up? I'd like to know how many. Oh my gosh! So many of you have some surprise and delight. There's more. There's swag bag.
You should definitely get it. You're here in the NFT room. Get your swag bag. So what else do we need to see in NFT technology to make collecting NFTs more fun for people? You know, one thing I realized is NFTs don't degrade. You've got a CryptoKitty, it's going to be mint forever. You know, which is, I don't know, is that good? Is it bad? What other stuff do we need to make the collecting side of it more fun for folks?
Well, basics are you need scalable blockchains that can deal with high frequency and lots of adoption. So either the current blockchains that you know about have to evolve, or new ones have to emerge. I think there's a lot of evidence that that's happening, but we're not fully there yet. I think you need, you know, what many of us call wallets, but I think that's a really unfriendly consumer term for these things. But you know, you need a place to store your collectibles and your NFTs and your assets and display them, right? You need mechanisms for publishing them on Instagram or showing them off. And then you need really friendly marketplaces for buying, selling, and trading. So, with super low friction consumer experiences, Dapper made some announcements around the wallet stuff on Friday. And then you need, compelling experiences on top. So, those of us who follow the space see tons of activity on all those things, but we're not fully there yet. I feel like this is the year where most of that infrastructure gets completed, and, easy to say, but next year could be a year of abundant IP.
So what we've done to solve that problem that you spoke about, which is the fundamental technology, is we have allowed people to create NFTs on the Stellar network that is very fast and much cheaper. And then when they're ready, they can move their NFT to Ethereum and pay gas. So there are solutions to that problem. I think what we need to do is there needs to be a lot more consumer awareness around these NFTs can actually interact with each other, because I think that's the killer app. And I think CryptoKitties have sort of shown us that in a little bit by showing that they can breed. And NFTs, not just kitties, can actually interact. And I think that's really cool in the killer app.
Well, go interact with some NFTs here at Consensus. You've got some now, so grab them, see what you can do with them. Thanks a ton to Mickey, David, and Jody for coming out today. Thanks everyone for coming, and see you around Consensus.
Thanks, Brady.